Okay. Well, welcome everybody. This is a topic that hit me really hard when I first stumbled into it. In my experience, the law is one of the most underutilized and underread parts of the whole Bible in the church today. It's also ironically the most read and most debated church document in all of history. Now, I want to be clear about a few things up front. When I say law, there's kind of two meanings to it. So let's get our terms straight, okay? There's two kinds. When I say law, it could mean the broader concept of Torah. Torah is a Hebrew word that just means instruction, right? And when we go into English, we use the word law. Unfortunately, the word law has a lot of baggage, right? When we say law, we don't think instruction when we use it in English, right? So law, or Torah, in a broad sense, is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The law of Moses, the first 5, or the Pentateuch. And it's meant to instruct us unto righteousness. Now, the other way we can talk about law is the more literal use of the English word law, where we get lists of don't murder, don't boil a goat in its mother's milk. You know, we get individual laws that are available for reflection. So I will mostly be talking about law in the broad sense, unless we pull up some individual laws, okay? We have to remember that law in the Bible is not like law in a modern day country. It's not legislation. Law is part of a story. It's part of a narrative. And if 2 Timothy has anything to say about it, it's useful now for instruction in righteousness. So when you read laws, they're there to tell you something, not simply there to check your behavior or if you're doing something right, okay? There's a huge danger when it comes to law. When a church tends to start looking into law, it starts doing what I've deemed the gold nugget approach. You read a law, you find an interesting thing about it, and you say, aha, I'm enlightened by this interesting thing. I now understand this law and we'll move on. I don't want us to be dwelling on those things here. Gold nuggets are interesting and they can be fun, but the law has a really big agenda in mind. I'm going to make some pretty grand statements like ignoring the law is something akin to ignoring the epistles or ignoring the gospels or ignoring any swath of scripture. The law as a category is the foundational scripture for everything that follows, even up through Revelation. The law cannot be taken lightly or handled like some sort of token Bible passage. We have to treat it seriously, but it's hard too, right? You read some laws and you don't know what to do with certain ones. I just mentioned don't boil a goat in its mother's milk. Am I really saying a passage like that is on par with the Gospels? Well, if so, we're in trouble, because what do we do with stuff like that? Well, that's why we have these kinds of conversations. We're going to hunker down in here for something like 2.5 hours. So we are going to be real chill about it. We're going to get cozy and we're going to do what the psalmist says with law. Meditate on it. Okay. Too often, we get used to some of the writings of the New Testament where you are introduced to a problem and then a solution. It really feeds into something of a Western mindset, and there is nothing wrong with that. We really need that. But it also feels more familiar to us. Sometimes when you sit in Old Testament passages, you are not given an immediate solution. And that grates on the psyche sometimes. But what we need to realize is that's what meditation is for. The Old Testament is a brilliant teacher in that it forces you to sit in something that you don't know what to do with. Why did God talk about the killing of infants? Why are we razing cities to the ground? What do we do with a law that warrants the stoning of my child? We're not given immediate answers to these things, are we? The law makes you sit. It makes you question. And most importantly, it makes you grapple with its author. It makes you come to God with emotion and say, God, what are you talking about here? Surely this can't be for me. This was for a group of people a long time ago, and it was historically preserved in my Bible, and here I am reading it. Not so. It is written for you, says Paul. I want to show you something before we really get into the throes of law, because again, we've got some good time with each other tonight, and I want to settle in. When I graduated, my father-in-law, present in the room here, gifted me with a page out of an original Geneva Bible. I'm a kind of a nerd for stuff like this, little Bible artifacts or historical things. When I run across them, I try to swipe them up, especially to show them to people, let people put their hands on it. I got this, it was super cool. And then I read, oh, which page did I get? Right? I look at the page from Mark 12. Woe to the teachers of the law.
Was that on purpose, Doug? Providential.
Discount. Beware of the scribes. They love to sit at the head of tables. Their punishment will be most severe. Skipped a couple verses to get to the point. That's the page I'm holding. So I come to you tonight to talk about law as something like a teacher of law in this circumstance. And I want you to know I do it with fear and trembling. Okay. So we can learn a lot from that passage right out of the front. We are going to be looking at some fun, interesting cultural tidbits to illuminate the law tonight. Some interesting ancient concepts, idioms, practices that all will feel very gold nuggety. And gold nuggets are great if they're counted in the right place. So I want to get us kicked off tonight with the bigger picture. I don't want to lose perspective. We're not just going to do a Bible study to say, did you know this? Zing. No. The law's saying something here. Anybody ever wonder, how did the Pharisees mess it all up? For a while, when I was growing up, I used to think, those horrible Pharisees, they're just legalists. They don't get it. And as I got older, I started empathizing more and more and more. How could they get it? This is confusing. They read these laws and it looks like they're taking them seriously. They're very structured. They're very smart. They take their jobs with a great magnitude of care. What are they doing wrong exactly? How do we empathize with the Pharisees here? Well, I want to get us started here with a passage that most of us may know, okay? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Micah 6:8 passage. Yeah, a few of us, yeah. It wants us to do what?
Justice.
Justly love mercy. Is that one?
Do justice. It wants us to love what?
Mercy.
Mercy, right. I saw a shirt recently, somebody walking around with these two phrases on it. Do justice, love mercy. And when I saw that shirt, my first thought was, what about the third part?
All humbly.
Walk humbly, right? So Micah 6:8 is actually Micah summarizing the body of laws in Exodus. He directly references those laws in Exodus and says, look, it's not so confusing. What are you commanded to do, really? It's this. Micah's actually giving a pep talk. Like, you guys are making the law too confusing. It's just this. And he references laws specifically listed prior to him. We are to do something, justice. We are to love something, mercy. And then we kind of forget this one sometimes. Walk humbly. Oh, walk is a big one. When you look at Hebrew text, walk is a word that kind of just means be this. Be this way. Don't be a different way. And not just be this way, but in everything you do, let your actions exemplify what you are. Walk humbly. This is your identity if you follow the law. It's not so shocking to hear what happened to the Pharisees then. We get closer to their foible, right? They love to sit at the head of tables. There are other things in that passage that they love to do too, such as devouring the house of the widow. Not humble, not just, not merciful. They are offenders of what the law is trying to do. We of course get Christ's summary of the law in the New Testament, but we're going to camp back here for a little bit before we go there. Okay. I want to read you a story, which is, I think, so Torah-like. Even though we're not reading from Torah, we're reading from Judges. Why Judges? Why will we open up here? Well, Judges is known as the most lawless time in Israel's history. So if we're really to grasp how law is important for all of us, we need to read about the time where they disregarded it the most. Okay? A little bit of a spoiler. I'm personally convinced that a lot of the issues in contemporary or in postmodernism, I should say, come from a lack of understanding and grappling with the law too. There are some parallels between some of the principles and mentalities in Judges and with some of the gone astray principalities existing today.
Yeah.
So let me read to you a story, and let's think about it with this in mind, right? From Judges 11. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, he was a mighty man of valor, but he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead begot Jephthah. Now Gideon's wife bore sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You shall have no inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and dwelt in the land of Tob. And worthless men banded together with Jephthah and went out raiding with him. I'm gonna put a pause there real quick. There's a lot behind the son of a harlot phrase that we're not going to get into tonight. What I want to focus on here is his family casting him out for that. Jephthah was hurt. He was clearly a man of gifts, a man of valor, right? So he had something to offer. He was important. He had something to give in the family. But because of this issue, they cast him out. He was hurt by them. He was tossed aside. So what did he do as a result of that? Did he seek reconciliation? Did he say, no, this isn't how the law says we should do family? No, he went and surrounded himself with what my text says, worthless men. You might have a text that says banded together with scoundrels, kind of like that translation too. So here we have somebody who's hurt and potentially even finds other people who were hurt the same way. Bands together, solidarity and hurtness. Okay, that's Jephthah right now. So he's banding together for some ulterior mission with these people who may have some solidarity with him. Let's continue the story. Then they said to Jephthah, "Come, be our commander, that we may fight." Oh, the elders, I'm sorry, I missed a passage. And so it was when the people of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob, because he was a mighty man, right? They said to Jephthah, "Come and be our commander, that we may fight against the people of Ammon." Oh, how did Jephthah respond? Jephthah says, "Did you not hate me and expel me from my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress?" You hear the gloating in there? Oh, now you need me, huh? Well, look how you did without me. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "That is why we have turned again to you now, that you go with us and fight against them. Be our head over all of Gilead." So Jephthah said to the elders, "If you take me back home to fight against the people of Ammon, and the Lord delivers them to me, will I really be your head?" And the elders said, "The Lord will be a witness between us if we do not do this deal. Do not do according to your words." So Jephthah went with him. Here we have a redeal. He's back in the family, but only because he's needed now. He has an expertise that warrants his desire to go back in. If you're wondering where the lawlessness comes in, we're getting there. You won't be disappointed. It's truly a gut punch. So he goes, I'll paraphrase some of this. He writes a letter to the king of Ammon. He says, "Hey, why are you warring against us in our land?" And the king of Ammon responds, "This isn't your land. We're taking it. It's our land." And then we get an extremely lengthy, and I'm not going to read it, an extremely lengthy letter from Jephthah to that king, justifying why this is actually the land of Gilead and not Ammon's. Okay. Now I want to say this is very impressive. If you read that letter, It goes through all the history of how they got the land, how God delivered them. It's very accurate. It's very well said. He clearly has knowledge, theological knowledge, maybe even some theological training, right? He's smart and mighty. And he puts his case out against the king of Ammon and says, oh, this is our land. You get out. The king of Ammon didn't interact with that. He just kept attacking anyways. Okay. So here we have quite the trained, dare I say, seminarian. It continues. After this letter, it says, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed through Mizpah of Gilead. And from Mizpah of Gilead, he advanced toward the people of Ammon. And Jephthah stopped and made a vow to the Lord, and said, O Lord, if you will indeed deliver the people of Ammon into my hands, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house when I go home, I will sacrifice for you. It shall surely be the Lord's. I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Why did he say that? He didn't need to do that. He's already going with the Spirit of the Lord. He's heading out to get victory, but he decides to stop and make this random vow, this random pact. This is not walking humbly, okay? Let's keep going. If some of you have not heard this story before, you're in for a conclusion, okay?
A nugget.
Oh, yeah. So Jephthah advanced towards the people of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. No doubt Jephthah thought it was because of his vow. And he defeated them from all kinds of boundaries. He really wiped them out. We're not going to get into the list there. So he gets his victory. But when Jephthah came to his house at Mizpah, verse 34, there was his daughter coming out to meet him with timbrels and dancing. Oh, and this phrase is so heavy here. She was his only child. I know we heard that before. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. It came to pass when he saw her that he tore his clothes and said, my daughter, you have brought me very low. You are among those who trouble me. For I have given my word to the Lord. I can't go back on my word. What do you think the daughter should say? You're crazy.
Yeah.
Why did you promise that? She doesn't say that. And this is what really, really makes this awful. She said to him, my father, if you have given your word to the Lord, do to me according to what have gone out of your mouth, because the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the people of Ammon. I'm going to skip a few verses to move on here, where it says, and it was so at the end of 2 months that she returned to her father, and he carried out his vow with her, which he had vowed. She knew no man, and it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went 4 days each year to lament the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite. Who? Don't let scholars tell you that there's some chance he didn't do this deed. Some scholars like to say that. It's very clear he did this. Now, what does the law say about sacrificing your children? Anybody know? Bad, don't do it, right? It's forbidden. Matter of fact, I think in Deuteronomy, it says the Lord hates that. You don't sacrifice children. You don't do it. But that's not the worst of this. Did you know in Leviticus 5, it says, if any of you make an outrageous vow to the Lord, pay X shekels to the temple and be absolved of that vow. Did the Lord want Jephthah to do this? Not at all. Jephthah was operating on his own terms. It's awful. That's not even the worst part. Here, at least to me, is the worst part. His daughter's response. What does the law say about your children? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. Hang it on your doorposts, on your foreheads. Teach it diligently to your children. He had taught that. She could have corrected him. Parents in the room, Blessed is the day when your kid corrects you, right? Jephthah
Good.
failed on all fronts.
That's good.
I hope this story at least instills a little bit in you. The law is pretty important. It tells us what God values, what he wants, how he wants us to behave in light of him. And this story also tells us those laws are for our benefit, right? Love your kids, don't sacrifice them. Oh, if you mess up and you make this strange vow out of pride, well, there's a way we can fix that. There is forgiveness in the law. Okay? That's how I want to get us started. We're going to zoom back out a little bit. May not come as a surprise to you that the Bible elsewhere has a lot to say about the law. Let's get into the spirit of it. Joshua 22 says, be so careful, keep the commandment and the law of Moses, the servant of the Lord gave you, to love him, keep his commands, hold fast to him, and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. The psalmist says the law of the Lord is perfect. It renews one's life. It's the testimony of the Lord. It's trustworthy. It makes wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. Moreover, your servant is warned by them, and in keeping them there is an abundant reward. If you think we're just going to stick to the Old Testament, you're wrong. 1 John 5:3 says, I love the language here. In fact, this is love for God, to keep his commands, and his commandments are not burdensome. That clarification is so crucial. Jephthah, in all of his knowledge of his history, was quick to prove why he had the rights to the land and what the Lord did. He had all this head knowledge and training. He was a mighty man of valor. He comes out and he totally misses the point. The lesson here is that knowledge of God is not knowing God, okay? We are not to just sit on our education or what our Bible study has revealed to us. All things should point to the persistent and fervent pursuit of God's character and his love for us. So whenever we read a law, that's where we want to plug it, right? We read a law and our question should be, oh, what's God trying to help me understand about him here? And then how do I copy it? That's what the law is here for, right? One of my favorite theologians, John Wesley, 1700s, he says, the law of God is a copy of the eternal mind. It's a transcript of the divine nature. It's the brightest efflux of his essential wisdom, the visible beauty of the Most High. It is the joy of every wise believer, every well-instructed child of God on earth. And Paul, and we're going to stick with this terminology after this, Paul says, the law has become our tutor, which leads us to Christ, so that we may be justified by faith. Now, I've gotten in trouble in the past when I talk about this. So I want to get this right out of the gate. The law, and this is going to seem detached, but I'm going to say it now. The law cannot save you. Okay? You can do the whole law perfectly, and guess what? You're not saved. That is not the function of the law in the slightest. I just want to clarify that right now because I'm about to say a lot of great things about the law, and sometimes I accidentally send a mixed message. Okay, so we're going to really camp on that. The law cannot save you. This works grace conversation rages on. Just when people think they've figured it out, oh, it's strange again. Works, grace, okay, I'm saved by grace, but I also have to do something. So if I have to do something, then am I saved by works? No. I get to do something because I'm saved by grace. But if I don't do the thing, then that's indicative that I'm not saved by grace. So do I have to do the thing in order to be saved? It can get messy. It's kind of like a circle sometimes, right? No doubt some of you have had these conversations with unbelievers or even people trying to make sense, heads or tails of this dynamic.
And this was so confusing to me throughout both my youth as well as college years in particular, because it felt that way. And it was amazing to me, David, when I finally saw that it's really summarized by faith, Abraham, by faith, all of the Hebrews. faith chapter, faith is still the response that's needed for the grace of God, which is given in response to the content that is available to them. So,
Yeah, even the
Yeah.
author of Hebrews says we are to have Abrahamic faith.
this very paradigm, though, is really what was the foundation that created such consternation for so long. And I'm just like, that can't be the case. So what I hear you saying is it's not about salvation. It becomes about our work of discipleship, sanctification process, our growth and development in Christ that's still for us today.
Yes. God saved the Israelites from Egypt before he gave them the law. The law was a gift afterwards. The law is for believers. It's a gift. We get to do the law because by the law, we learn more about God. And don't we all want to learn more about that? I hear being Christ-like is a pretty big deal in the church, right? The law really helps us with that. Matter of fact, that launches me into what I want to show up here. Some of you may have seen this illustration before. Some of you haven't. This is one of the, I feel, the best illustrations in all of biblical teaching. I don't know, I'm probably going to cling on to this for my whole career. I don't know, maybe if something better comes along, I'll drop it. But this is super important. There's what's called the four-stage biblical worldview. And it really helps make sense of just about everything that happens. So let me give it to you really quickly. Stage one, when it comes to understanding the world, how things work and our place in it, we see these 4 steps. Step one. It's an obvious one, creation. Step one in the biblical worldview is creation. Now, there are so many angles we can take on this. I'm going to pick one angle, okay? At creation, we had harmonious relationships with God, with each other, and with creation itself. Relationships were whole. They were filled. We had harmonious relationships. That is the big point for creation. We then get to the next step. What do you guys think it is? The fall, that's right. And running with this angle I have, if we had harmonious relationships with each other, God and creation itself here, now we have fractured relationships, a lack of harmony. Relationships with God, with each other, and with creation itself are now hard. Immediately after the fall, there are fingers being pointed, right? This woman did this to me. Immediately, harmonious relationships were lost. They're gone. Step 1 and 2. So far, we've just done Genesis 1 and kind of 2, and Genesis 3. 2 steps of the 4-step biblical worldview, 3 chapters. We move on, step 3, redemption. This is practically the whole Bible. Redemption says God understands that relationships are gone and he wants to fix it. He wants to come in and restore these harmonious relationships with himself and his creation, so that his creation can operate with each other. He wants all these relationships to be brought back to how they were. So he initiates a plan of redemption. That's what the whole story of the Bible is all about. And it operates through covenants. Sorry for my writing, I'm bad at it at this angle. Finally, move over here. The final step, there's a lot of different words for it. The simplest one, I think, is glory. The plan works. The covenantal plan that God makes with his people to restore relationships, it works. Relationships are restored fully in their entirety in the end. And they're better than they were before because we got to meet Jesus along the way. We also have a new creation. It goes back to creation again. But this next time, there's not going to be one of these. God is a creator God. And he doesn't lose us. He's not going to just let us go. That's where we end up. Now, moving on from here, I want to say, where does the law come in on this? Okay. Well, if we lost harmonious relationships, we need help on working on those relationships again, right? That's where the law comes in. The law says, oh my goodness, you have all forgotten how to love each other. Let me help you. Here's how we love each other in this scenario, in this scenario, in this scenario. Use these scenarios to figure it out. How do you love each other? In this way, it makes a confusing command less confusing. Have you ever thought about how confusing the command to love is? Love your neighbor. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean I bring them a meal? Does that mean I go pay off all their debt? Does that mean I don't know, I give them all that I have? Well, the answer could be yes, right? But it's ambiguous. Love that person. It's such a broad and narrow command. The law helps us figure it out, right? The law helps us make sense of love. The lofty phrase tossed around is the disambiguation of expectation. You're expected to love, but it's ambiguous. So the law makes it disambiguous. It helps clarify what love is. That's its function. How do we love God better? How do we love each other better?
And in our world, what I'm trying to say is that, and then we have the nations around us. So then when we start reading about all the ites, Ammonites, etc., then they all have their kind of ways of being in the world as well. So it's not just relating to our group of people of God, but it's about how are we going to also express this redemption and love your neighbor from one end of Egypt all the way up to Chaldeans who
Absolutely.
try to kill us. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's very complicated, and we very much need God's perspective on how to navigate.
Mhm. Another resource on how to love better is just looking at Christ's ministry, right? You see what he did and you imitate. There's all kinds of outlets to make love less confusing. You can also look at what the Father did for the Hebrew people out of Egypt. There's all kinds of examples.
So don't boil the baby in its mother's milk. Is that reconnecting a relationship with God, with others, or
Oh, we're going to
creation?
get to that one.
It's coming?
It's
Okay.
coming.
All right.
I promise you, before you
Trying to
leave
fit
today,
that into this model here. All right,
before
thank
you leave today, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, good.
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We're going to come back and we're going to get more specifically into the laws themselves, okay, and what we do with them. Right? Just a 5-minute.
7:10, we'll be back. We start at 7:15. Go.